Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast. Each week we're talking to people active in business and the economy about the big issues driving growth in the north of England. We're sponsored by Virtue Motors, one of the UK's largest motor retailers. Check out its website at virtuemotors.com. I'm Graham Robb, owner of Recognition PR. We help scores of businesses promote their products and services. Some are featured on this podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. In the studio today, we've got Bob Borthwick, director at Scott Brothers, a family-owned and family-grown recycling, haulage and plant hire business established in Thornaby-on-Tees in Tees Valley more than 50 years ago. Down the line, we've Martin Hathaway, managing director of the Mid-Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce, which serves the Halifax, Huddersfield, Wakefield business communities and drives growth among businesses of all sizes around those districts by providing relevant and valuable support. And later, my colleague Joss will be speaking with Stephen Patterson, Chief Executive of NE1, which manages the Newcastle Business Improvement District, a business-led initiative which champions Newcastle city centre, increases its competitiveness and ensure it maintains its position as one of the UK's leading cities. Well, welcome, gents. Welcome to the programme. First, Bob, now before we get into the products that you've got on our table here, which are very interesting when we get into it, tell us and remind us what Scott Brothers does, because 50 years is a great time.
Yeah, the business has evolved over 50 years, of course, and we've got into green technologies, one of them being a soil washing facility that we've invested something like £6 million at Grangetown, some land we owned at Grangetown, and we take all of our construction excavations for washing. As part of that wash process, we do get at the back end, we get recycled sands, recycled single-sized pipe beddings and the like. And also we get a discarded filter cake from that process. That filter cake has been researched in partnership with Teesside University. And as you can see, if the camera goes on to the desk here, the table, we've got some prototype recycled bricks made out of that filter cake. And
I'll pick one up. They are nicely moulded, as you can see, but they feel like a regular brick. They look like a regular brick. They're a different colour to a regular brick.
They are. I mean, the colour is part of a pigment that you can actually add a pigment into those bricks and make any sort of coloured brick that you like in terms of a facing brick. Yeah.
So the kind of thing that they do come from is basically granular material that comes out of construction waste.
Soil waste. Yeah. All excavations on house building sites, civil engineering projects, all the soils excavations that we take from those projects are washed through that washing process at Grangetown.
And it may not be topsoil, I suppose, because that can be recycled.
No, we recycle topsoil, yes, but any of the subsoils that we get.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose that you're not going to necessarily tell us the full details of the process, but what does the process involve?
Well, basically the process we get is that filter cake at the end of the process, we actually mould into those bricks, and we are researching a binder. So we don't want to use cement as such because of the energy intensity of manufacturing cement. That goes against, obviously, the grain of using too much energy. So we're looking at some sort of recycled binder, which those are part of a recycled binder process. And we are looking at, obviously, IPing the actual ingredients that goes into those manufactured bricks.
So the formula, obviously, a state secret, but very different to the conventional way bricks are made, which is using fires and ovens and a lot of heat, isn't it?
Well, we use not as much heat as what a normal kiln fired brick would use, but we are researching into not using any heat for the brick to hydrate without heat.
Obviously, the efficacy from the point of view of renewable components is brilliant. But what about the price? Do you think it'll come in at a competitive price?
This will come in at a competitive price. I've already had discussions with major house builders in Teesside and surrounding Teesside in the possibility and probability of them procuring that brick once its provenance has been established.
So clearly, we believe that you've got the thing, you can touch it, feel it, feels like a brick. But is it going to be stress tested? Is it going to be put under compression tests?
Yes, it'll be all tested in the appropriate standards for the brick use in the market. definitely.
Now, this is great innovation, and great innovation is going to be critical to growing the North. Let's go over to the Mid-Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce. Martin, obviously you're not in Teesside, but you probably see a lot of innovation in your membership. What do you make of what Bob's enterprise is doing?
Well, I think as usual, it's great to hear from real businesses innovating in what's going to be a very important sector for Yorkshire and the entire North in the future. I must just trump Bob. We've been going 170 years next year, Bob. So your 50 is.
I know, great. Martin. We are president members.
Right. So the Chamber of Commerce 170. You're 50 years old. I'm 50, and my business is 35 years old. I'm just a baby. I'm just a baby. Now, Martin, you heard Bob's description of what happened in terms of developing this product. There's a university tie-in. Bob, did you do any R&D tax? Was there any incentives?
Yes, we've got an R&D, and we have got an innovative UK grant as well.
Now, the components there, university, R&D tax support, and Innovate UK grant. Yeah, that's quite a healthy mix, isn't it? Is it easy for businesses, do you think, to achieve that mix? Is the policy sufficiently progressive to allow lots of research and innovation to come forward?
Yes and no. The products and services are there, so things like Innovate UK grants and assistance from your own accountants, solicitors, with the policies being put in place by government and the support being put there. But it's accessing it, which can be quite complicated for businesses, and as I'm sure Bob will say, filling in the forms can be somewhat complicated. So it's really good to get proper advice and guidance when completing those forms and understanding what the funding can help you with and what you can do with it.
And what was your take on it? What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, the process was very robust. You're quite right, Martin. The actual application and submission to Innovate UK is quite a complex arrangement. So we had a lot of help by Teesside University, who have actually been successful with Innovate UK and know all the protocols and the procedures to get a grant award, basically. But yeah, it is. If we didn't have the help of the university, we would have had to go to a specialist consultant, accountant.
Now, at Teesside University and in the West Yorkshire area, there are other universities that are similar in the way their structure is when it comes to business facing. The Russell Group universities tend sometimes to be more academic and featuring the students' aspirations, but quite often the universities like Teesside are looking at their own business community. What's it like in West and Mid Yorkshire for university tie-ins?
Yeah, we have Huddersfield University, which is in our area, and then obviously there are a number in Leeds with Leeds Beckett and Trinity and Leeds University itself. And the support they offer businesses is fantastic, really, especially on the innovation side of things, to do with, in particular, health services in Huddersfield and Leeds with the financial tech sector in particular. But I do think it's important to understand that innovation doesn't only happen in universities, it happens in businesses, and more innovation happens in businesses. But if we can tie that in with the specialist support from universities, the economy will grow quicker in the north. And across the whole of the north of England, I mean, if you just look at the great universities that we've got, from Hull to Liverpool, up to Newcastle and Leeds and down to Sheffield, especially, there's some great support available to our businesses.
All right, now let's move on away from the specifics of your case, Bob, and just look at what's coming up. In the next few weeks, we're going to have the Chancellor's autumn statement, and now that gives the chance of the government to sort of set an agenda for the coming 12 months. Now, Martin, the Chamber of Commerce will obviously have a view on what it wants the government to do. Now, away from the sort of headline-grabbing, income tax rates and so on, what is the Chamber in Mid-Yorkshire saying?
Well, we've just done our quarterly economic survey, which we've been sort of undertaking for the last 30 years. So there's sort of 30 years of data behind this, which gives us a real indication of what businesses are thinking. And for quarter three of this year, we're seeing some more positive signs from businesses. We're seeing domestic sales are down slightly, but exports are up considerably from where they've been in both servicing and manufacturers sectors. And investment is showing signs of people are thinking about it again when they've not been thinking about it. Of interest rates have been rising because of the costs of the service that they offer. So what business likes more than anything is stability. It likes to know what's going to happen next as far as possible. So interest rates, it's a strange time to use them. At the same time, we're trying to get businesses to invest. We're making money more expensive to access for them. And indeed for individuals suffering from the cost of living crisis, we're taking money out of the market. So stability is what we'd like more of in the future. We would like to see more in the north. So the cancellation of HS2 was disappointing because of the lack of ambition, but it gives us a real opportunity to get that transport system across the north in terms of all transport. So trains, buses, and cars as well. Whilst we're still able to use them, it gives us a real chance to invest in that to really level up the north of England.
Okay, that's a fair point, well made. Let's pick up on some of those things and ask you a general question. What would you, if you were Chancellor today and you were putting the budget or the autumn statement together, is there anything you would pick on that you think would make a difference?
Yeah, I wouldn't put the fuel up, fuel duty.
Yes, of course.
Definitely, that's been selfish from my point of view, because putting fuel duty up defeats the object to a certain degree, because that is inflationary.
And your business has fleets of quite heavy vehicles.
Yeah, we've got 50 vehicles, so it's not just the vehicles, it's the plant that uses white diesel now. So we've got a double compounded issue there with that. At one time it was using red diesel in the plant, but obviously it's using white diesel now. So
yeah, which is double the amount.
Well, it's compounded things for us in terms of a business to actually re-strategize that cost. And obviously that cost's got to go to, it ends up to customers.
Does the Chamber of Commerce have a view on the sort of restricted car zones? I mean, I was listening to another podcast where there were some thinkers from local councils. One of them was in your area. I won't name names. And the woman was just saying, of course, we want to discourage people from using cars. And it's sort of a sort of knee-jerk, we want to discourage people from using cars, but people choose to use cars. They're universally adopted in many towns where there aren't fast transport systems. And of course, they enable you to get where you want to go, when you want to go. So just to sort of say, this person worked as a senior officer in a council, we want to discourage car use. It's had a lack of sophistication about it.
Yes, I think that there's a real danger with local authorities and councillors on local authorities declaring climate emergencies without consulting with businesses and with other organisations that are key employers. It's a dangerous thing to do, but that doesn't mean that businesses don't want to do things in a greener way. They want to do as much as they can in general to do things greener. And so anything that restricts businesses being able to move about the region is seen as a promise by businesses. If you take out parking spaces, their staff and themselves still need to get into work. And so not having a parking space makes that harder. And if the public transport system isn't up to scratch in that area, then it creates a problem and it increases the costs of the business. And at the moment, we've got virtually full employment. And people will work where it's easier for them to get to as part of their decision on deciding where they want to work.
Yeah, and as far as car parking, hubs for car parking, maybe having central parts of town with pedestrian only, or fast links, as maybe would be possible now in Leeds, particularly as a result of the HS2 cancellation. Maybe that is a more rational way of approaching it than just blanketly picking your favoured form of transport and saying that's where it all goes. That's my view. What's your view on it?
Yeah, I think connectivity is very important. Like Martin said about, obviously we need full employment and that connectivity is essential. It's good to know that there is funds coming into certainly the regions with HS2, sort of the plug being pulled on HS2, and they are investing in the north. And upgraded connective transport system. It's essential.
Interestingly, our podcast sponsor is Virtue Motors, and they were on national radio this week explaining how, as a result of the ULEZ and the opinion that ULEZ has, diesel cars will not be able to get into London. That isn't true, actually. There's a diesel car can. They are moving a lot of their diesel cars for sale in the north, where we're able to pick them up, and we don't have any kind of point of view against them. Yeah,
absolutely.
Martin, let's not focus entirely on that. Skill shortages are also issues for your members, aren't they? What is the most common way that members are overcoming skills shortages? How are they meeting the challenge?
Most common way is paying more.
That's just more money for the same skills sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's and this is inflationary. This is the issue: is that that when labour becomes more required, then the cost of it goes up. And people will move around more frequently to earn more money in those, in particular, lower level skills, but higher level skilled jobs where they're required. And so it's very difficult. There's two different approaches which I'm hearing, which are, number one, people are investing in training their staff more in their own training programs and investing. And to counter that, there's an awful lot of people not investing in training because they think that if they train someone, then as soon as they're trained, they will go somewhere else to earn more money. And so we've got to find the right balance with that. We've got to find the right level of pay for the jobs that are required. I mean, we've been working on a local skills improvement plan. So over the last few months, we've spoken to just over 1,000 businesses at what they believe their skills will be needed in their business in the coming years, which is a very difficult thing for a business to articulate. So what they tend to do is tell you what jobs they've got available now that they can't recruit for, which of course is helpful in its own way. And those sort of sectors are the ones that we all know about: health and social care, construction, logistics, and education, financial, professional services. They're all struggling, and if we don't get a grip on inflation, those pressures mean that it costs us a lot more money to export and to sell our services on.
Martin, are you coming across members, and I would be if I was being asked by you in a survey, that are now exploring new technologies, AI particularly? I run a white-collar type of business, PR firm and so on, and we've had a skills mix review and looking at where AI fits into the matrix in the next year or so, with a view to assisting people on both productivity and also greater advanced products.
Yeah, the design element in particular. So, high level engineering in particular, but a rather surprising area is professional services. More and more accountants and solicitors are looking at how they use products that you use AI or developed by AI to do some of the groundwork that they used to have to do themselves.
I'm having basic core scripts and things written by AI before we start talking. This is not AI. I am a real person. Well, look, Martin, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us down the line. It's great to have Mid Yorkshire Chamber in. It's a great. I mean, it is really an area where commerce in this country was right at the forefront, isn't it, Mid Yorkshire?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Martin. And Bob, I hope the bricks go well.
Thank you very much, Graham.
See you then.
Thank you.
Now, let's turn to my colleague Josh Haverkin and see who he's talking to in this episode of Northern Business Podcast.
Thank you, Graham. Today I'm joined by Stephen Patterson, who's the Chief Executive at Anyone. Thank you very much for joining us, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.
So, viewers and listeners of the podcast might remember a few weeks ago I was up in Newcastle where Anyone was launching its document as it looked to be re-elected to represent and support the businesses of Central Newcastle for the next 5 years. Stephen, I've got to ask, how did the vote go?
Very well. Businesses have voted 93% in favour of renewing Anyone for a further 5-year term. That term will start next April, the 1st of April, running from 5 years to 2029. So myself and the team, obviously, we're delighted with the strength of that yes vote first
Absolutely.
and foremost, and it provides a really strong mandate to push on and deliver further for the businesses of Newcastle over the next 5 years.
Congratulations for a start. So some of the things that you've done over the last 5 years has been very helpful to businesses in Newcastle. But can you outline for maybe people who don't head up to Newcastle what it is that anyone does to help businesses there?
Well, we deliver on behalf of our businesses across 3 core areas. The first being stronger voice for business, really championing their issues and their priorities, both at a strategic and an operational level. Attracting and promoting is the second area, putting on events that bring people into the city centre and making sure everybody within our catchment area knows what's going on. And the last but not least of the 3 areas is operations. That's getting the basics right, cleaner, greener, safer. So those are the 3 core areas where we deliver as a company on behalf of our business.
Excellent. So obviously the businesses are very happy with the work that you've done in the last 5 years in previous terms. Looking to the future, what are your plans and ambitions for this next term, the next 5 years?
On attracting and promoting, we're delighted that the city will be hosting the Euro 2028 Cup Finals here at St James's Park. Wow. It's a fantastic partnership got between ourselves, the City Council, and obviously the football club in terms of what goes on the pitch, inside the stadium, but also importantly, what that civic welcome looks like for the fans coming here. So that's probably one of the biggest things that we'll see over the next 5 years. Beyond that, it's really about capitalising on the opportunities. We've got 15,000 workers moving into East Pilgrim Street. We've got the Conference and Exhibition Centre across in Gateshead, and it's about how we as a city really maximise those opportunities and the influx of people that will bring into the city centre. And yes, beyond that, it's about how do we keep the streets clean, how safe does it feel, and how green is our city. So yeah, those are really, I suppose, the big headline things moving forward.
Very exciting. The future's definitely bright for Newcastle, isn't it? If we have a bit of a retrospect, you've been doing this for a little while now. What are your highlights? What's been some of the things that anyone's been involved in that you've thought, I'm really proud to be in that?
Right, crikey, where to start? Probably with a project that is very much live at the moment. And being blunt about it, it's a nightmare because Grey Street's dug up and that work's continuing. But the city centre transformation programme is very much something anyone has been a huge part of over the last 5-10 years, and it's secured £37.5 million worth of investment in the public space, the public realm in the city. And we're seeing that work transpire at the moment. So I would very much hope to be speaking to you in 5 years' time saying, doesn't it all look fantastic and it's all complete? And the city is firing on all cylinders. And probably from a personal level, I would say Newcastle Restaurant Week, we were the first city in the UK to do Restaurant Week. It's an American concept that originated in New York. And we very much borrowed and modified the concept for here in Newcastle. But when you think you have cities as far away as Southampton and Aberdeen doing that, and 101 in between, I think that's had a really big impact, not just on Newcastle, but the city's adopted. It's a great way of shouting and celebrating your culinary expertise in the city.
Absolutely. And just on that final point that you mentioned on Restaurant Week, I guess part of your role is getting people to think of Newcastle in a different way, and people who've never been to Newcastle to come along. Now I'm from the northeast, I've been to Newcastle countless numbers of times. But every Restaurant Week, I head up, I try something different, and it's about, getting out there and showing people what there is. So I think you're doing a brilliant job, Steve, and obviously the businesses that you work with do as well. They've re-elected you again for another 5 years. So just a final note to say congratulations. Well done. And we're going to go back to Graham now, back in the studio. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. And if you'd like to join us as a guest on the Northern Business Podcast, I'll be tagging my colleagues on my LinkedIn, and feel free to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Join us next time for the Northern Business Podcast. Never miss an episode. Like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.